my Kimber Walton now? Morning.
Good morning.
Hi guys.
Hey Ashley, how's it going?
How are you? Good.
Getting stoked for this, Nick. Or Kimber Walton.
Right. I know. I'm like, I don't know at what point my computer decided that I make a good Kimber Walton.
Oh, hold on one sec.
Don't feel bad. I'm always Emily Lowry.
True that. How's it going, man?
Great. How are you guys?
Good. Good. Oh, we got Tiffany on here too.
Found my mute button. Yes.
Love it. Welcome. Hey, Doug. Good morning. All right, I'm just going to give everyone a couple minutes to hop on. Then we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, Nick. My mute was stuck.
Oh, you're good. Good morning, Doug. How are you
Good.
doing?
Yourself?
Doing well. I know that my computer's going to be slow if I don't close some of these tabs before I get started. So here I go. Oh, we got quite a few other people popping on. Look at that, Kimber. That's pretty good.
It's Thanksgiving week, okay?
Hey,
Right?
Hi, Tina.
hey, Kimber, we need to talk.
Oh, okay. Let's do it, girl.
Well, you know what about?
Oh, shoot.
Can you believe
No,
it?
that was my one thing this week. Nick can attest to it. My one thing was closing out. I had 3 tickets that are like an issue. You're not the issue. The ticket is the issue.
No, you're so sweet.
So yes. But yeah, we'll chat today.
Awesome. I've almost got all my tabs closed, and I just assume everyone that's hopping on is hopped on.
We didn't have to sign up for this or anything, right? It was just joining.
No.
Okay.
Just come as you are.
All right. And I got my sweats on.
Yeah, just hop on and learn a little bit about pricing. So I love pricing homes. I love taking listings. So, and pricing homes right is, you know, kind of key to taking listings. So, right. Okay, I think I got my tabs closed to make sure I let anyone in who needed to be. It looks good. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. I love that several of you hopped on today. Can I go? I'm not going to waste too much of your time, but I really would. I think I can be a little bit more helpful if I can get a quick idea of where you guys are at, and if you have any specific questions or specific things that you're curious about, and then I can make sure that I touch on those. So can we just go through? Let's start with Kimber, because you're the first one on my screen.
Yeah, so I have a great property if you'd like to use me as an example.
I think I will.
Okay. And I think regardless of, obviously we're going to go through exactly how you're going to complete the CMA, but I think maybe at the end, just briefly touching on how you can use this as a tool to market to sellers, because it is way easier to be a listing agent right now.
Totally.
So
Love it. Perfect. Well, I have you. Will you give me the address that we're dealing with? I have a feeling
Yeah.
it's Murray.
Yeah, so it's 1160 West Coronado Way.
Coronado Way, and that's in Murray, I'm assuming, right?
It is.
Okay. Perfect. Deal. All right. Next, I've got Doug. Is there anything specific you want to get out of this, Doug?
Yeah. Whoops. If there are no homes that have been sold in the last year in the area you're tracking or knocking doors, how do you determine the value of homes in that area?
Great question. Okay. Deal. I will make sure we cover it. Tina.
Well, you know where I stand. I'm new. I'm open for anything. But I am curious about a house that kind of stands out in the neighborhood that doesn't really compare easily with other houses.
Yeah, totally. We can definitely talk about that. Perfect. Okay, how about Tim? Anything specific?
You know what? Just for me, like I have my way of doing it. I'm sure it's like lengthy and not the right way. So I just want to see how everybody else does it and if there's any tricks that I can learn.
Cool. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let me know if you have anything to add or you have any of your own tips or tricks.
Awesome. Thanks.
All right, Ashley, what do you think?
Hi guys. Again, I'm fairly new too, so I'm just trying to take in all this information. I did put some flyers around in a certain neighborhood and offered to give a free CMA to kind of let people know where they're at. So I better know that I'm doing it right. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay, free CMA. Maybe that kind of goes along with how to market to sellers. It sounds like you're already doing that. And then Aubrey.
Yeah, so I am actually a transaction coordinator and assistant for Amy Gibbons, and she would just like me to, and I want to perfect this because when she's busy, it takes one less thing off her plate, and haven't quite got the gist of it yet by teaching myself. So
Oh, I love that. That would be awesome to be able to help her with that, for sure. Okay, feel free to ask if you have any questions. And Nikki, anything specific for you?
No, I'm just kind of here observing to help Tim as well.
Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Okay, Wendy.
I
anything?
would like to know how I can bring leads through marketing CMA.
Lead through marketing. Okay, awesome.
Like landing pages with CMA.
Perfect. Okay, and then Tiffany, did you have anything? I think you hopped off and hopped back on maybe, so I think I missed
Yep,
you.
I had a call come in. I just love new tips and tricks. I know everybody's got their own little ways, so I'm just looking for some hot tips and tricks.
Okay, perfect. Let's do it. Let's get into it. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen with you real quick, and we are going to dig in. So let's do it. I'm first just going to let's just go through and do a CMA together. You can kind of see the way, like kind of what the thought processes are, the systems that I'm going to use to kind of go through it. You might find some things that you think are awesome, and maybe you can show me a few things that you guys do better than me. I don't know, but I'll show you kind of the whole thing, and then we can talk about tips as far as how to use it and things like that. But let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to do, I agreed that we were going to do a CMA on this house for Kimber. So the address is 1160 West Coronado Way in Murray. And so the first step is always going to be to find that the last time that house was listed. So
It's when I bought it.
okay. So I'm just going to go into a full residential search. Going to pull up the property. Typically, I just use the house number. And then like this has a pretty easy street name. So I'm just going to put Coronado. We got 5 matches here. So I'm assuming one of them is hers, or maybe all of them are hers. Yeah, I'm assuming they're all hers since they all have the same square footage. And I'm always going to take the newest listing. So this one that sold in August 2013, I'm assuming that's when it was purchased, and that's the one that I'm going to use. So I'm just clicking on that to pull it up. I always like to download it as a PDF just so I can keep it kind of handy and off to the side. So I'm going to download it. That way I can open it in kind of a split screen.
Goodbye, Kimber. I'm sure that has tons and tons of equity right now.
Right.
Can't wait for you to sell it and move out this way.
And it's not blue anymore.
Really?
Not blue.
I know, it looks so great. I love all the pictures on Insta. All right, so here we've got the actual, I'm gonna have to figure out how to get these Zoom cameras out of my way. Okay. All right, so we've got the subject property right here. Let's just go through it a little bit. Obviously, it is a multi-level, about 20.
So, Nick, can I just bring up a point?
Totally.
So our house is actually a 2-story.
Oh, really? Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. I mean, that's a great point. Sometimes these don't get, they don't get categorized correctly because they're just being categorized by realtors. And you probably met a few realtors that you thought really knew their stuff, and probably a few that you would prefer not to be compiling all our data for us. But
So basically what you're saying, again, new agent here, is that you bring up the latest listing on that house, no matter really when, and then you just kind of base it on that. And I mean, that way you can kind of kick a can down the road, right? Like you said, it's actually 2 stories.
totally.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, you could even, I bet that they could, yeah, I'm sure yeah, so like it was put that way before, no one changed it. So yeah, 100%. I mean, basically, we're just trying to get a basic idea. There's not really a good place to get it except for on the MLS input sheet. If you have to go through tax data records, it takes a lot longer. So if this is an option, I'll gladly take it. You might be better off to flip through some pictures real quick. And I mean, you can see it's definitely a 2-story. So, but from the
Right,
outside,
1 staircase, that's what that qualifies, right?
yeah, that's what I would call it for sure. But it does look an awful lot like a multi-level from the outside, so I get it. Okay, so the first step is to get all the information, of course, on your subject property. So anyways, we have it here. It's 2,200 square feet. It's actually a 2-story, built in '88. It's got a 2-car garage. The basement is finished. This is something where you do want to, especially if you're doing a CMA and you're not going to be at the house, that's one of the pieces of information you're going to need to know is the basement finished? Sometimes you'll get these that say that it was 90% finished 20 years ago, but you find out that it's not really finished anymore, or it's, or it shows 0% on here and they've since finished the basement. So it just kind of depends, but people rip apart their basements all the time because they flood or something like that. So just double check, make sure you know whether you're dealing with a fully finished basement or not. That's one of the questions I would ask if you were offering to give someone a free CMA. And then just make sure the bedrooms and bathrooms are okay. Is this still correct, Kimber? It's 2,200 square feet, 4 beds, 4 baths, and finished basement?
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Okay, so now we have a pretty good idea of what we're dealing with here. Now what we have to do is find some homes that we can kind of compare it to. So we're going to go back into our full residential search. We're going to start by looking for any sold houses that have gone in the last little while. So when we choose sold as the status, we're also going to get this 1 year back sold date. So we just have to get rid of that. And we're going to pick our own sold date. So this is basically choosing how recently were these comps sold. So really right now, we're probably going to go back 3, 4, 5, probably 5 months is the most. I mean, going back to June is even a little bit of a stretch right now with how much the market's changed. But if we don't go back far enough, we're not going to have any comps. So I'm going back to June 1st. Let's circle in on our map too. So there's this view map button right here. we can click on that. We're going to want to get a radius of the neighborhood and kind of figure out which area we want to pull these comps from. So what I typically do is I'll hit this circle, which is the radius tool, set radius location, and then we're going to want them within a half mile for sure. And then you can just put the old MLS number. So I'm just taking this old MLS number, putting it right here. That way it'll show us just listings that are a half mile around the comp or around the subject property. So, and as we look at this, when we're looking at this, we're going to have to do a little bit of logic here. And I will say that I'm not like Mr. Murray. Like there's certain areas I'm really good at.
Mr. Murray.
Mr. Murray. I know that's surprising.
So can I add just a little bit on this as you zoom in?
Totally.
So if you notice like where the little star is on the property address, so right in front of it, there's that house that just sold from, it's 590. So you can actually see that house from my window because our neighborhood faces the back. So our neighborhood was built in the 80s. That house, those houses were built a little bit later. The hard thing about a comp for my property is there's only 4 houses on my street, and mine was the model. So they built mine and I think one other one as a 2-story. So every house behind us, all those 395s, 375s, they're all the tri-level. And the ones in front are all the newer, larger, and the ones behind that are the tri-level, those are like 1800. So I feel like there's no comps. I mean, I would tell you that, but you're obviously going to prove me wrong. But that's the issue you have, is that small little street that I live on is really only the 2 stories.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
Just for background, since you're not Mr. Murray.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, from a you know, like I said, since I'm not Mr. Murray, I mean, I do know some. I mean, I know some. I've lived here my whole life, but I was raised in Murray, but I didn't exactly study real estate statistics when I lived there. I was quite young. So probably, I mean, I'm just going to use a little bit of common sense here. I'm going to assume we cut off comps at the freeway at 215. Going to assume that's like a hard line where we're not going to take comps from over here. I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Like, I mean, I know a lot of this is new construction, so it may not help us a lot anyways, but I'm going to assume that we're kind of going to want to choose comps that are on the same side of the freeway. Would you agree with that, Kimberly? You think that's
correct? Those 784s are a new Ivory development.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, really cool neighborhood over there, but I think it's probably not super comparable. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to actually try to make my own area here. So now that we've seen kind of what the radius looks like, I'm just going to use this polygon tool. So just click it right there. We can basically outline the area that we want to pull comps from. And it's probably something like, it's a little bit tricky. Like,
yeah,
you probably want to do a little bit more research. And I even will look on Street View and I'll see, what do these houses look like? Do they match with these? But I know for sure that this is kind of going to be the area. This is the immediate neighborhood. So that's kind of the ones that I'm going to pick for now.
Nick, can I ask a question? So on this 13th West is Taylorsville. So if you go above 13th, you're at Taylorsville. So if you're on the border of a city, does that matter when you're doing this?
Not too much. I mean, you see some really hard breaks. Like, I imagine if we just cut these out separately, we would get different pricing for both, just because of the city. So I guess the correct answer is, yeah, it will a little bit. It's more about the immediate location, but we know there's a lot of places like, you know, there's a lot of places where like West Jordan and South Jordan meet, that we see massive splits between values just across the street, you know. Mm-hmm. And so there's definitely places where it makes a big difference, and then there's others, like, you know, being on one side of 13th East or on the other, where it makes a big difference. It's hard to say a specific one of like, that this side is going to be worth 25,000 more than this side. So we mostly, whenever you feel like you don't know how to compare it to other houses, try to find houses that are more similar to the one that you're valuing. Like
Okay.
try to find the best comps that are the most similar to yours. If it does happen to be on the other side of the street, I would still use it. You just want to find a house that's similar to yours as far as the style, as far as the size, the layout, and even just like the style, the way it looks from the street, the way the houses are positioned on the street, if they've got bigger lots or smaller lots. Like, you just want to find the best comps, the comps that look the most like yours. So, okay, once we've kind of chosen our map, I'm going to hit hide map here. And let's kind of see what we're dealing with. One thing I know, like, 2-car garage is going to be a big thing for this one. Like, I imagine if I weed out anything that doesn't have a 2-car garage or has more than a 2-car garage or less than, I think that's going to cut my matches down right now because I've got 16. It's a little too many to really do a good deep dive on. So let's see what happens if I just say it has to have a 2-car garage. 2-car garages are very much like, they're going to fall very similarly with each other. 3 cars and 4 cars are going to fall very similarly with each other. And then not having a garage or having a 1-car garage, those would kind of be in their own category. So you kind of want to have it categorized like that. It's really hard to compare a 2-car house with a 2-car garage to a house with a 4-car garage. So it is awesome that we can do this. Let's see what our 8 matches are and just kind of get a feel of where we're at right now. Okay, so when I pull those comps, and you'll see some of them are going to be Salt Lake, some of them are going to be Murray, some of them might be right, some may not. I mean, who really knows exactly? These listing agents may or may not have known which city they were actually in, or maybe they put Murray, but they were really Salt Lake because they wanted it to sound better. You really can't know too much. We know they're in a pretty similar area right there. Okay, let's actually look through these and just kind of see what we've got, because we've got, like, if we sort it by square footage, we range from 1,800 to 2,400. We are going to want to take probably like this Rambler out. I do think we're going to probably be comparing it with some multi-levels. Like that's the vibe that I'm getting. I know that's probably not the vibe that you're wanting, but we're going to compare it with that. It doesn't mean that we can't give it a little bump because it's a 2-story, but we need some comps to compare it to. So probably what I'm going to do is I'm going to go refine my search. I'm going to change the property type to single family, which I think isn't going to change anything. But just because obviously it makes sense to just be comparing with single family. I doubt it's going to change this number, but it's still thinking about it. Let me see if I can get rid of that. Okay, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go to style. That's the one that I really want to make sure. I only want 2 stories, and I'm going to add in multi-levels. They say very controversial, but I don't know what else to do. So, we use the best stuff that we've got.
So are you saying a 2-story bumps the value up compared to a multi-level?
Yeah, typically a 2-story is going to be worth a little bit more than a multi-level. A Rambler is normally the most expensive floor plan as far as price per square foot, and then 2-story, and then multi-level, and then split entry. I don't know where bungalow falls in there. They're usually in neighborhoods by themselves, but yeah, that's kind of the ratings. And it's really hard. I mean, it's just hard to, if you compare a split 2-story to a Rambler, it's going to be impossible to calculate because they have so much different value. Like the main floor square footage is worth the most. So houses with the biggest floor plan are usually going to be worth the most, but then the second floor is worth a fair amount as well. So all your square footage that's on the second floor is going to be worth a lot too. And then the basement is worth the least. So that's where you'll get the least price per square foot is in the basement. So that's kind of how they rank, if that helps. Okay, then I'm going to pull these up. I mean, I think these are all within a reasonable square footage amount that I think we could compare all of these. Being between 1,800 and 2,500, I think we're probably pretty good. You will see, I mean, we could, if we wanted to just be uniform, we could take all the 4 bedroom ones and get rid of the 3 bedroom one if we wanted to, and that will probably make our value look a little bit better. But remember, we're not trying to convince someone that the value is better. We're really trying to figure out what it is. So, we just have to kind of do the best we can. I like to look at it in a brief report just because I like the way that it gives all the info, like in a pretty short way. So you can look through, this is the basement finish. You can see the code up there, the key up there, but this is the basement finish. So they all have finished basements, even 85 or 90%, that works. That's a finished basement. Then we can go through and we're going to look at acreage. So 0.12, 0.12, 0.12, 0.13, 0.13. So very much the same there. And you'll see that those are a little bit smaller than the subject property is going to be. I mean, the difference between 0.12 and 0.17 can be quite a bit. That's, a little less than half more than the other ones. So that is something that we'll take into consideration. Let me just see. I don't know why I still have this. Maybe this is a tri-level. I thought it was a rambler. You've got a lot of surprise homes in your neighborhood. A lot of sneaky ones. So, okay, so if we go through all of these, let's see which ones we think are the best. They do all have 2-car garages. Is there anything else that really makes these stand apart? Is there anything that you guys think like really, like, I kind of think these all kind of fit the mold. I mean, if you look, ours is a little older than most of these, but only by 5 years. That's negligible for sure. I think how I'm going to pare this down is probably I'm going to go by sold date a little bit, because you see this one's in June, but we've got some that are in August. We've got one that's in November. We got another one we've got a few that are in November. So let me just order this. I'm going to try to order this by sold date as well, just to get a little bit better idea of, what trend the neighborhood is going in. I would say in general, like in June, these were showing up like in the 370s, then they go up a little bit. This one's probably an outlier, even though it's the biggest one. I'm going to assume there's probably some work needed because you can see how low the sold price was. It was sold cash, so that sometimes can imply that it was undersold a little bit. Not always, especially right now. Usually people.
How about the acreage? I mean, Kimber's lot is 0.17. The others were about 0.12, most of them. Does that matter? I mean, that's really what you're buying, right? You're buying the property for the house on.
Yeah, it does matter. Probably what I would do is I would give it a little bit of an adjustment. This is like, these are the best comps that we've got. So we've kind of got to work with what we have, but
I understand that. I'm just thinking that would that be an important factor to look at, I would assume, right?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, you tell me.
I think it's going to make a difference. Even like when you look at these, well, you can't really tell. But I think hers like sits back a little further. It's got, I don't know exactly what the backyard looks like, but it looks like it's got some big, nice trees behind it. Like, I think her lot is probably substantially better. And I mean, it's probably not a bad point that we should probably be popping in here. This is what I would normally do, is like, just go in and take a look at the neighborhood, see how it fits in, because size of the lot is one thing, but also just like the quality of it. And normally when you go to like a street view on here, you'll be able to see a little bit more of how, it sits in the neighborhood and how it kind of compares. Let's pull it up real quick. Let's see what the street view looks like. That's a nice place. I've never really looked at your house.
So it's the one next to it. So so you guys can see like our cul-de-sac.
Oh, it's this one? Or is it on the side?
That Liberty I sold like 5 years ago, so it's been a minute. But you can see how massive our cul-de-sac is, and there's just these 4 houses on the street.
Totally, not too much.
4 houses look nothing like all of those houses behind us.
Totally.
So it's definitely hard.
Yeah.
And then sorry, Nick, see where that speedboat is? If you scroll over, go back over. So that house with the speedboat, that's the 590 house.
Oh, okay.
So just to give you a frame of reference of where you're at.
Yeah, totally. All right.
Thought about putting an offer in on that, and Kate's like, I can't look at my old house
All
all the time.
right. Well, yeah, so it's a nice place. You can see it's on a nice lot. I'd probably like to see it from the top. Let's see if I can, oh, I did the wrong thing.
Hey, Nick, to your previous point, like doing research on this particular home is like a really good idea because her home is quite unique in the fact that it has a really awesome secluded circle like you guys are talking about. And so I think that promotes value. And then, like you say, unfortunately, you are going to be comparing to some split level homes. And so I think this particular house is a little bit trickier to come up with some good comps on.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. And I think you're probably even going to end up doing kind of you're just going to add a premium on a house like this. And that's where if I did a CMA and Kimber did one and Tim did one, we would very likely come up with all different numbers. So that's where it's a little bit more of an art than a science. We can dig through the numbers, and that's why I like to do the data first. At the end of the day, you kind of have to look through and use your head a little bit and just say, hey, I think my buyer, if they were looking at that house and looking at this house, I think they'd be willing to pay more for this, and then trying to put a dollar amount on it. So totally agree. And what is this? Is this a pool or is this like just a play area? Or
Yeah,
what?
so there's an HOA. It's $20 a month, and it covers the pool.
Oh, that's super cool. Yeah. So you can see on the, you can see her street definitely sticks out for sure. Like it's totally unique.
So I think in like the 80s, they built these houses. Ours was the model because it had carpet in the garage, like you can tell that there was carpet in there. And then they built all the houses behind it,
Wait, what? I didn't live here in the 80s.
Yeah, so
Carpet in the garage?
yeah, because they set it up as like an
Oh my
office,
gosh.
like the model, like it had full electrical, like our garage is all insulated and full electrical because it was the office of the 1987 agents. Very cute.
Tina's like, I've heard of carpet in the bathroom, but I've never heard
Like
of
that very thin. So what I'm saying is you can see the carpet's not still there, but you can see that like glue a
Yeah.
little bit left over.
Hey, I'm from wood country, so carpet in general is just weird to me. But
Yeah.
Okay, so as we go in and we're kind of just trying to figure out where these all sit, typically what I do, I actually print these and I put them on my desk and kind of sort them. Really, if you're trying to do a full analysis on these, you're going to want to look through all the pictures. I'll probably spare you from flipping through all of them, especially since my computer's been pretty slow today. But you can kind of look through. I've seen pictures of the inside of Kimber's house, so I know it's pretty nice. So you're kind of just going to compare these and just be like, oh, I wonder if this is a little bit nicer or Kimber's is a little bit nicer. And kind of just go through that. Like I said, this one, I don't really know why it was undersold. It doesn't look too bad, even though the landscape was garbage. Obviously, it's a little dated. Like they're probably going to want to do the cabinets and stuff, but it's
Based
really
on
not.
the location, it could have been one that backs because there's two streets go up to 215, so it could be like closer to the freeway. I don't know.
Totally. Yeah, that would make sense. I don't know where Crystal River. Yeah, it probably is because it's on Crystal River Drive, so could easily be one of those. So anyways, I'd probably, something like this, I'd just throw the outlier kind of out a little bit. It was listed at 365, sold at 325. I'd kind of throw that one out. But as you go through these, kind of flip through, just see what we're dealing with. This one looks like it's been pretty remodeled. Pretty nice place, so we like that one. It's probably more similar to it's got a nice yard. It does look like it probably backs 215 with that sound barrier right there. Crystal River. So that's something that we should really probably consider as well. We're pushing up against 400,000 with a lot of these, but like this one could back it too. Let's see. I probably don't put a picture of the sound barrier on some of them. I probably wouldn't. But even if it is like being right here, even if it's on this side of Crystal River Drive, it's still you're still gonna get more of this eyesore from the freeway, where I'm assuming, Kimber, you probably don't notice any of that, right? Like from your house, you can't see it. You probably can't really hear it. Is that
No,
right?
no, you can't.
So you kind of look through there. Really what I'm thinking is, okay, these nicest ones that we're seeing, let's go back to view results. So the most expensive, let's go to brief report. That's the one that I think is the easiest to just dig through. I really think like the nicest ones are going like really close to 400. These are, like I said, these are both in November. Those are probably the ones I'm just gonna latch onto, just because they're the most recent. I'd say they're the most similar. They are both a little smaller than our subject property. So let's say that the subject property was just 2,200 square feet, but it wasn't a different floor plan. It was the same multi-level, but it was just a little bit better. Or it was just a little bit bigger. I'd probably round up to something like 400 is where I'd stick the value.
Can I ask a question? I'm
yeah.
looking at these. So we have like what I can see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 comparables here. Well, 7. Okay. 2 of them on Eagle Nest and 5 of them on Crystal River. I mean, it's a long drive there, but what I'm wondering is people are selling because of the closeness to 215. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it could
That
be, for sure.
it may not be the most attractive area. So, you know, you got some equity in your house now, you want to move on because you don't want to live right next to the freeway. Meaning that your house would be more valuable by maybe quite a bit than right next to the.
Now, what's the freeway premium, Nick?
Yeah, totally. The
I
freeway
don't know if I make
premium.
any sense, but I'm just
No,
like
that
that.
does.
That
That's-
catches me. Like, why are people selling on Crystal River Drive?
Yeah, and those are just places where typically they'll have bigger turnover. It's not necessarily like, oh, it sucks living by the freeway. It's like they bought it knowing that it was right there. They were okay with it for a little while, and now they're moving on. So it's one of those things. Whenever you buy in a location like that, you always, or when you're telling your clients, like if they buy something like that, I'm like, hey, it's totally cool if you buy it like that, but you need to get a deal on it, because you're going to have to offer a deal to the buyer that buys it from you. So you just have to make sure.
But that's what I meant. That would be have to be taken into consideration by quite a bit when you're now putting, some kind of value on Kimber's house, which is not affected by the freeway.
Yeah, I agree. Kimber's face is turning white, so we need to go a little bit further west, right?
Right. Exactly.
Don't be scared, Kimber. Your value is a lot higher than that, I think.
No, we're gonna move you out west. So, anyways, as you compare to these ones, like I'm gonna say, let's say that it was a multi-level. It had everything similar with these ones. It's probably gonna be like I'm just gonna be a little bit rougher, but if it was the same house but just a little bit bigger, and the acreage was the same, I'm probably looking at something like 400K. If we're adjusting a little bit, like we're gonna kind of use and we might even go. Let's try this, just since it's a little bit of a unique one. I don't always do this, but there's this CMA report in the MLS that will actually try to compare these for you. And I'm going to take, basically what it is, you have all your comps, you hit CMA report, and it'll just load it in here. I'm going to do a little favor and get rid of this outlier that I don't like. So this puts all of our comps on these columns. I'm going to remove the one that we don't like just because I don't want to give Kimber a heart attack.
Yeah, I like the 390 and 392 better.
Right. So I'm going to do that. Let's just see kind of if we were to put these in, because basically this is built to basically make your adjustments for you. I'm not saying I'm going to agree with them, but it's kind of nice to just see what a computer thinks, because a computer doesn't have emotion or anything. So just hit populate subject data right here, and you can load in the house that we're trying to do a CMA on. I'm going to put that MLS number in there. And now it's going to try to go in and calculate everything. So it's going to say, okay, these all have 4 bedrooms, so they're not going to adjust any. But if you look at like total square feet, it should be adjusting them some.
And I didn't see any of the comps that had 4 bathrooms. Did you see?
I think they pretty much all had 4, because I think we took, I didn't take out the 3-bedroom one, but all the rest of them did.
I mean the bathrooms, not the bedrooms.
Oh, yeah. So if you go through, like when it says these, like it's adjusting because we've got 1 extra full bath compared to this one.
Oh, okay.
It's adding 5,000 to that because we have 1 extra 3/4 bath. It's adding 3,500 to that. So it's trying to kind of go through and add, whether we like the adjustments or think they're right. I don't know. Probably the best thing that I'm probably even going to get rid of these older comps, because I like those higher comps anyways. I think they're more, they have more to do with your house. And in this market, we're really pushing the comps because as long as we get it priced somewhat reasonably well, Kimber's house is going to sell. It's more a matter of whether we can get an appraiser to agree with us on price and make it look like we at least know a little bit of what we're doing. So if we get rid of those, it's actually calculating this out to be about 400. Now it's using some ridiculous numbers to do that. If you look at like this one, this is the subject property right here. If you look at down here, it says the acres is 0.17, and you can see these are all 0.12, 0.12, 0.12. But it's this correction that it's applying, or this adjustment that it's applying, is based on a full acre being $43,560, which that's kind of a stretch to me. I don't think you can buy an acre for $43,560 in Salt Lake County. Like, I really think that I'd put that, I mean, it could probably be higher, but I like to put that like a fair amount higher. Like, you could easily have it at 300,000 and probably not be way off. But if you're trying to, it's probably more like 350. So if you're trying to apply some adjustments that way, see how that, I think I've added an extra 0.
Yeah, you had an extra 0, but that was looking better. Just kidding.
So if you look at, like, this is saying what is a full acre worth, and then this is saying how many acres does this have, which is 0.17, and then it's applying an adjustment for the fact that these are smaller. And I would say those are probably they're probably pretty similar. They're probably about right, something like that. And so you can see how this adjusted total for our subject property just keeps going up. I usually get rid of the concessions in there just because it was a long time ago. We kind of get over that. That's kind of old news to me. So as you see, like if it's just adjusting for things that are data driven like this, you could give a pretty good case of why it's 415. You could totally hand this to an appraiser and say, hey, here's why I think it's worth 415. The next part is really where we're going to have to use our artistic skills and just try to figure out what sorts of premiums we want to put on it. Coming from as unbiased of a point of view as you have, Kimber, what would you rate your house on a scale from 1 to 10?
I mean, a 9.
Not well. You'd probably rate it pretty low because you're trying to get out of it. But yeah, like condition wise, is it a 1 being a total dump, 10 being completely renovated? Where do you think it falls?
I would say an 8 or 9.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to be up with the highest comps, and that is something that I like to use when I'm dealing with sellers, especially one where I've never seen the house before. You know, they're a total stranger, never seen the house before. I like to have a range. So what I'll do is I'll kind of figure out what the low end is. Like, okay, if the house is a total disaster, what do the numbers tell me it can sell for? And that's probably like 375 or something like that. And then we try to find the peak where, okay, if we go there and it's totally perfect, then it's going to be 425. And then typically you'll fall somewhere in the middle. But that makes it easier so that when you go to do that listing presentation, you can actually present the CMA with them. And all you'll have to do is see the condition really quick, rate it on a scale from 1 to 10, and decide whether it needs to be at that 375, at the 425, or somewhere in between. So I do like to use the range. It just helps me be more prepared when I go to the house, and kind of already know that, hey, as soon as I see the condition, I'm going to be able to rate it on that scale, and I'll know exactly where it needs to be priced. Because a lot of times you won't know the condition before you go there. So anyways, like I said, the numbers kind of show us 415. If we're going to apply some other some other adjustments, I would probably recommend even going to, like if we clear out our, let's go back to our search. We could even look at, we're looking at solds here. Let's see if we could get, is there something we could do to get some more? What if we take out these styles? We're only going to get one more, and it wasn't like a really expensive one, right?
So that 591, I know it's in like a totally different year, but if you were up against the wall right now, which it's like you are, right? You're like, okay, well, this is really tri-levels or the location, you know, so you're trying to find like the next best thing. So you go to the other side, which is the high one that doesn't necessarily compare the other way.
Mhm.
Would you do that and then just start deducting all the things that it doesn't have? Like that one has a 3-car, but you know, because that 591, it was a total fixer upper. Um, but it was obviously 3-car garage, more square footage.
Yeah,
New.
I mean, if you look at our criteria, we don't have much criteria. Like we're not weeding out a bunch of stuff. We're
Yeah.
only going things that are back to June 1st with a 2-car garage. So that's, I was trying to find like some of those other comps to kind of filter in, and really the only thing I can do to loosen up on it would be to get rid of the garage capacity. That should give us more options.
And you're only a
Now,
half a mile away too, right? That's your radius.
yeah, totally. So we could, yeah, we could expand out a little bit too. I mean, that's good. Let's see what happens if we do 3-car garage or better. Let's see what options this one has. Like, see, these are gonna be like, if you're looking at an appraisal point of view, like I just don't think I'm just imagining myself trying to convince an appraiser to use any of these comps, and they are gonna tell me to get lost, dude.
So as far as you though, trying to price it,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like you just went through these houses that aren't a perfect match, but you're trying to get a price with that. Would you ever do the opposite way where you maybe are grabbing the higher one and then working your way down versus working your way up?
Totally. Like
sense?
you could, like, see this on a 3rd acre. Like imagine if we put this, say we put this into a CMA report. This is just a total experiment. I honestly don't know what's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I assume it's going to be a complete mess full of adjustments. But like, oh, I thought it was actually going to make it worse because it was going to adjust everything out. Like if we value an acre at what we have valued an acre, and then if we went through and kind of tweaks the adjustments, these are being adjusted a whole lot. But if you look at like the acreage, like if you could try to find, I mean, if you could find one that was more similar in lot size, it'd be a lot better. I mean, I guess these 24s, that's probably as close as you're gonna get. And that's not way crazy far off. You know, it's about as far off as the other ones are in the other direction. Just slightly more. That's just, it's really hard to go. But I mean, you could say, okay, other houses in the neighborhood are ranging from 590 to 750. Like I think that's kind of a range, or 760. So I mean, you could say that the height is 590. You could say, okay, it's not worth more than 590. It's like you could still learn something out of these, but your house isn't going to compare with any of these ones.
Yeah.
So you know that, I mean, you can kind of set a ceiling.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was going to ask is do you, in maybe hard comp situations, do you kind of set the floor and ceiling and then have a conversation with your seller?
totally.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, if you put a ceiling of 590,
I mean, I wish.
which I mean, a ceiling meaning it's definitely not worth more than that. So we now know that it's in between 380 and 590. At least we've narrowed it somewhat. There's still a couple $100,000 in between, but at least we've kind of narrowed it in. And then on paper, it really comes out to like a 415, something like that. I mean, I'm just going to be honest with you. You're going to have to use a little bit of like looking at other houses. Like what the next step really would be to dig through your actives and pendings. Let's see if we find anything else from there.
Nick, can I ask you a question? So when you're meeting with your seller, how does this conversation go as far as you asking them what they think it is? Do you ask them that at the front, or?
No, so I'm very much like, I'm trying to do it with them,
Okay.
because one of the problems, and especially when I get asked like how to use the CMA as a tool to market to sellers, I'm like, you can use it as a tool you can use that service as a way to market to sellers, but you never want your value proposition to be the value of their home. Because if I tell you that the value of your home is 450, and then someone else comes and tells you that the value of your home is 475 or 500, now it's my value proposition against theirs, which is money. Like, they're saying you're going to make more, I'm saying you're going to make less. Which one are you going to pick? And so you have to make your value proposition be more of the service that you're providing, and you really want them to pick the price. And so what it looks like is we come through, we find the best comps. Like, they have to be the absolute best comps that we can find. Which, like I said, in this one, it is difficult. But you got to come with those comps, show them, line them up with them. I'll even flip through the pictures sometimes and say, hey, where do you think your house fits in this list? I'll have the most expensive at the bottom, the cheapest at the top. Hey, where does yours fit? And typically they can kind of see, if you walk through, you say, this one has X amount of square footage and X amount of baths. This one has the same. This one has a little bit bigger acreage. This one has a little bit less. You can kind of see where the house fits usually. This one's a little bit of a unique situation where you're not going to have a perfect comp to say, hey, this one sold for X, mine's really similar to that one, let's go with that. It's going to use a little bit more of, you're going to have to throw a little more stuff out there. But you want to go through that process with them. And then at the end, I say, hey, where do you think your house fits in there? They're usually pretty close. And if they say something way higher, like if I say, if I'm thinking 450 and then you tell me 500, then I'm going to say, awesome, love it. And then where are you coming up with that number? And then they're going to say, well, our house is a lot like this one, but we think it's worth $100,000 more because we put in all the landscaping. We did a full remodel on it. It's amazing. And then we can at least have that conversation. And then as we flip through the pictures, we'll be like, hey, I know yours looks really nice. This one looks really nice too. And you kind of just show them the differences. And that's typically how I do it. So then by the end, they really have got to come up with that price on their own. And then I'll kind of agree with them and or coach them one way or the other. But if you go through all the numbers with them and show them all the comparables, they can usually come pretty close. And then you can work out the differences. And then I don't do it very often, but I will take an overpriced listing as long as they know that it's overpriced. So if it doesn't sell in the first week, they're not upset at me. They're not thinking I didn't do my job. Like, if we overprice it, they have to know that I'm taking an overpriced listing, and we have to have a plan of how we're going to get it down if we don't get it sold in a certain period of time. So that typically looks like, if we don't have solid offers within 10 days, then we're going to reduce it to whatever I thought it should be at.
And that's a delicate situation, right? Because most people think that their home is worth more than it really is. Like, it's us, human nature. But I would say that it's almost as bad to overvalue as it is to undervalue the property. Because if you overvalue the property, you sit on the market for too long, then people look at it and say, oh, this house has been on the market for 21 days. There must be something wrong with it. And you lose that interest, and you lose that momentum out the gate. And so that could be a huge problem.
I'm just thinking there's a lot of psychology in that. People would look at it and say, why did they lower the price? Is this basically what I'm thinking as a buyer, having been on that side, you don't want to buy a house that nobody else wants, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah. And the problem is, in a normal market, 10 days isn't going to tank your market presence. Like, being on the market for 10 days is not going to be the end of the world. Right now, that's like an eternity. Like, that's like the oldest, crustiest house on the whole market, And so you have to kind of watch. It depends where the market is exactly. The market right now will be pretty nice to you. So if you overprice by 5,000-10,000, you're not going to have any trouble. But if you're overpricing something by 50 or 100,000, you're gonna really have issues getting it sold. So that's why most of the time I don't take them that way. Like, I've taken pretty few overpriced listings, But if you do take it, I literally have them sign a price reduction form in advance. I post date it, and I say, hey, on this date, we're dropping the price to X. And then I have them sign it. And then on that date, I call them. I say, hey, we didn't get the showings that we needed. We didn't get the offers that we needed. And we're coming down in price significantly, like we talked about. And then I just move forward with that. So yeah, you definitely have to have a plan if you're going to overprice. Right now, it's a little tricky to overprice because even this one, like I'm kind of thinking like now that we've dug through all the data of what's out there, and maybe I should go over this real quick. Like you're also going to look at the pendings to see if there's anything else that's out there that's, you know, going to help us with price at all. This is a split entry. I kind of took out a lot of the criteria. So I get a split entry at 370. That's not really going to help our value. Split entry is always going to be worth a little bit less. And then let's see if there's any actives in here. There are no actives in here. So there's literally no actives in that map range that we pulled. There's no homes for sale. So what that means is really good things for Kimber. She's not going to have a lot of competition, and we're going to be able to do really well. So from that point, we're pretty much going to go through. We're going to have to use a little bit of common sense here. Comparing, like I said, the height is going to be 590. We're not going to sell it for more than 590. The low, on the very low side, I would say we're around 400. I'm probably going to be throwing a little bit of, I'm going to use a little bit of my own, just kind of common sense here. And I'm going to say that house is probably worth, I mean, I would probably, it does have a finished basement, right?
Yeah, it's just the little utility room that's not finished, but it's storage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I'm probably going to price it around like 450, something like that.
I think you're good at this. So I was thinking, just my thought process being the homeowner, searching for homes, for example, I'm not seeing, and this is just how I think through it. I am searching currently to buy a house up to 650, right? So that's my search criteria. So if there's a house that I could possibly buy that's listed at 659, I am not seeing it. I don't get alerts. I don't get any kind of notification that that house even exists as a buyer. So for me, I would probably think maybe listing it at 450. I know that in this market, there's, the averages of how much it goes over ask and stuff like that are there. But I think it's a good opportunity to grab that 450 and under buyer versus putting it at like 465 or, and then maybe not even being seen as much. So that's my thought process, but I need somebody that knows what they're doing to validate that.
Totally. And probably the best thing to do is like, if we do this all together, we'll come up with similar answers, or at least we'll kind of know where we're all coming from. So it kind of leads us in certain directions. But if you just ask, like, if you ask me and you ask Tim and you ask Carrie and Emily to all do a CMA separately, we would all come up with pretty different CMAs. And when you talk to us about it, like when you look at it and you look at the comps that we use and the adjustments that we use, you'll see that we all use different ones. And then we could look at all of those and say, okay, now you think that, you're putting an adjustment like this for that. Why are you doing that? Why does that make sense to you? And so I think it really is good when you have a property like this. I mean, I do the same thing. I'll have Rich help me. I'll have Terry do a CMA for me, or another agent in the office. And Jeff Farrell is good at pricing homes, and we'll just kind of each do one. And then I'll just take them all, compare them, and just see where they come out on it. And I think you learn a little bit more that way by just seeing what other people are seeing and kind of what they think. It does make sense to talk to a market expert in that area. So like I'd say, Midvale or Murray is not my like prime location. That's not the place where I do most of my business. So I would definitely ask someone who is more in that area to get a little more info, like a B Herd or someone who lives in that area that's been doing real estate for a while. So I think you could reach out to other people like that, because really me just throwing a $35,000 premium on top of what the automated CMA, it's going to get me somewhat close. Like I kind of know, like because you're basically getting a convenience, a little bit more of a nicer property, but there's not a whole lot of tangible there. And so we're just kind of throwing it to the wind. But I'm confident that if I brought a buyer to that house for 450, would they buy it? Absolutely. Like Kimber said, compared to everything else that's on the market, I can tell it makes sense. Could we sell it at 500? I don't know. And that's probably what I'd ask another, I'd try to get someone else's opinion on it. But I'd say we probably are going to be somewhere around that 450 mark. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, I think it's a good.
Can I make a comment? This is Lisa, not Robert.
Oh,
Just
hey.
in case you're wondering who Robert Gonzalez is, that's me. Sometimes I wonder who he is too, because he works so hard and I never see him. But I just want to contribute a little bit on that. Is that I just had a listing out in Daybreak, and I'm not a Daybreak expert. And so I got a hold of Crozier, and he lives out there. He's bought many properties out there. And because of Crozier, I priced the home like $20,000 over what we were talking about originally, and we got it. And it appraised there and everything. But we have such an appreciating market too that it's hard to price it sometimes by what happened in the past, because you have to actually call the agents to have something under contract and try to get an idea of what they actually went under contract for sometimes. So I do that quite a bit too. And then if I it's going to be a couple more weeks, then in a couple weeks right before I list, I'm looking at it again and calling those agents and seeing if they've closed yet, or if they were close to closing, or if the appraisal was completed and it came out where it needed to come out, so that I can adjust any pricing. And so that way we're really on top of the market of the moment and pricing it so that we can get our clients the best deal.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's a great point. And another thing is, like, Lisa Gonzalez, like, she knows what she's doing. She's listed a lot of properties. She's been in this for a while, and she knows what she's doing. Before this, she was in lending, so she knows what she's doing, and she still goes to find help when she's pricing a property. And so it's important for us to be, I don't know if the word is maybe humble, but to just not think that we know everything and do the best we can, and then compare that with other people who are totally willing to help, because we just can't know. And we have these blind spots. Like, a lot of people ask me how to price stuff in my neighborhood, because I live in a big neighborhood in Bluffdale, and there's a lot of different pockets and things. But even me, like, sometimes I find myself getting a little emotional about even the area that I know the most about. I'm emotional about it because I don't like certain things or whatever. And it's important to just get people's different point of views, especially people who haven't lived there before, to kind of see what they see. Like, what does an outsider see when they look at those houses? Because we all have our biases. We have our houses that we like. A lot of people don't like split entries, and so they totally push them to the bottom of the line. But a lot of times you'll see the split entries, they're pushing 400,000 right now. So it's like, even though you hate them, they may still provide you really good information on what a house could be worth. So anyways, okay, so that's kind of how I'm going to find pricing. Does anyone else have any other ideas of how they how they would adjust this? Like I said, literally, when I say 35,000, I know that that's kind of a silly thing to say, because it's like, how can I reproduce that? How can I know what to do additionally? I don't have a ton to add. It's a little bit experience based, but I will say, like, typically we're going to list in the $25,000 increments. So I know that biases a lot of my pricing as well. If you list in $25,000 increments, so either at 425, 450, 475, or 500, we like to list exactly on that line, because then people who are looking up to 450, like if we list at 450, people looking up to 450 will see the house. People listing 450, or people looking for 450 to 5 or 550, it's going to pop up in there as well. So you're trying to get into multiple brackets at once. And so for me, I think a lot of the reason why I jumped from 415 to 450 is because I'm like, okay, we need a little adjustment up. I don't think 10,000 is going to be enough, because we're having to adjust for both the acreage, the house style, the condition that it's in, and the fact that it's on a cul-de-sac, the fact that it's further from the freeway, like there's a lot of things we're comparing for, or we're adjusting for. So I just feel like 425 is probably not enough. 450 is the kind of that next mark, and that feels pretty good. I would say we're really between 450 and 475, something like that. So it's a little bit, like I said, it's a little bit of an art. Check with other people, see what they think. A basement's a little bit easier because we just like, for an average size basement like this, we just add 25 to 30 grand every time. In a house that's like this, or maybe has up to a 1,200 or 1,500 square foot basement, we're going to be between like 20 and 30 grand. For a really bigger house, it's going to be a little bit different. For a much bigger house, it'll be a little bit different. But with a basement, you have square footage, you can calculate it out. It costs about $25 to $30 a square foot usually to finish out a basement, so you can calculate it out. But with something like this, where we don't have a lot of tangibles, it's just all these like feel good like things about this house, it's just a little bit harder to tweak. So any questions on kind of how we went through that?
I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to send you an email.
Okay. Yeah, I'll totally get back to you. The other thing that I was going to kind of talk about is when you're using this to get leads. So say there's different ways you could use a listing to get leads, or use a CMA to get leads. The way that I do it most commonly is to my SOI. So for my SOI, I send them a CMA every year. At least my top 50, but I try to get through as many of the homeowners that I have in my SOI. And so that just looks like every week I do a couple CMAs. I'll go through my list. It says that I have to do my quarterly contact with my people. And then I just pull their address out. I'll do a quick CMA. And then I can just either email it to them, or some of them I'll have them FedEx. Like if I think they're a good possibility that they might be looking at moving in the next year. Sometimes I'll FedEx them the whole packet with all the photos and everything. But just by doing something like that, I like to tell people, like, you check your stocks every day. You probably check, if you invest in stocks or whatever, you're probably checking that every day. It's important to know what your home value is worth as well. And so you're just keeping them updated and giving them that kind of automated, that touch that they didn't really ask for, but they might be interested in what their home's worth. That's a great way to get leads. Because it's going to get them thinking about, okay, well, maybe we should sell. Maybe now is the time to sell. But when you do something like that, just make sure that you're giving them a really good range, like a really healthy range. So if I was sending one out to Kimber, I'm probably going to send her one that says that her house is valued somewhere between 400 and 450. And then I'm going to have some verbiage on there that says, hey, this isn't, this is just a rough estimate based on other comps that have sold. For a more in-depth analysis of your home value, let me know. And so you want to do something like that, but you're going to give them a range. You don't want to send them some number that they're going to get really stuck on. If I send her a thing that says that her house might be worth up to 500,000, they probably are already going to have that number in their head. They're going to be thinking of all the things they're going to buy with all this money they're going to make. And so you want to keep them in kind of a reasonable range and just say it's somewhere in between here, make it really conservative, and say, if you are looking to make a move, call me and I'll get you a more up-to-date, a more thorough deep dive on your home value. Other ways that you can use it as a tool to market to sellers, like Ashley said, you could always offer a free CMA to people. Just say, hey, if you want to know how much your home's worth, just send me your email or send me your address and a couple details. And those would be like, is your basement finished? Is there anything special about your house? How would you rate the condition? Something like that. And then you could run a quick CMA for them. You could also, we do have a way that we can run Facebook ads. Kimber knows the exact details on it. I haven't done it for years. But where you could basically set up a form where you could run Facebook ads right through command. And then when they go, and it'll basically say, do you know how much your home is worth, or do you want to know how much your home is worth? People will click on that. It'll ask for their information, their name, their phone number, their address. And then you can get that information and then call them, email them, mail them that CMA information and try to set an appointment. So that is one way to do it, and I'm sure Kimber would be happy. I think we have a video of how we can actually implement that. But that's a really good way to do it. I've gotten a lot of seller leads that way, which is pretty cool because most other Facebook leads are buyer leads. So anything that's seller facing, I like because I like to take listings. You can also, when you do that, I do find that it's a little bit better to make your ad wherever you're putting this ad for a CMA, especially if it's on Facebook or something like that. Put, do you know how much your Bluffdale home is worth? And then just run that ad to Bluffdale. Do you know how much your Daybreak home is worth? And run that ad to Daybreak. Now, obviously, we can't target quite as tight as we used to be able to, but just put it in that general area. That way, when people see it, they'll say, hey, that looks like a house that would be in my neighborhood. I do live in Bluffdale, and yes, I need to know what my house is like, or what my house is worth. But it just helps them to it helps catch their attention that you're talking to them and not just what is your home worth, because it's not very specific. So if you say the city that they live in, they're more drawn to it and they're more interested. What else? Leads through marketing. I think we covered like how to get leads through marketing. Do you have any other questions about getting leads through marketing? Are there any specific ways you're trying to do it and want a little bit more information on how to package a CMA or anything like that? I think we covered a house that doesn't have very many comps. I don't think the house that we use today has very many comps, especially good comps. We talked about unique homes a lot, and maybe hopefully you kind of saw the way that we kind of dove through those and tried to find some similarities that we could use. Of course, it's easier when it's just in the neighborhood full of townhomes and single family homes, and then like really nice single family homes, and you can just portion them all out and just say, hey, these are the good ones, these ones are not quite as expensive, and these ones are the most expensive, because then you can just weed out all the townhomes. You can weed out all of these big estate homes and just have your little chunk in the middle. But in real life, our neighborhoods are so mixed. They've got tons of different things. And so you just have to find the best comps you can. It is okay to go a little bit outside of the half-mile range, if that helps. In a few instances, I've done that. It's a little trickier once you get to appraisal time, just because appraisers aren't typically going to go out further than a half-mile. But it just depends on the situation. A lot of times in like more rural, like I listed a really nice house in Magna, and there wasn't a lot like it. And because it was in kind of the more rural part of Magna, it was like there weren't a lot of comps around, so we had to go out a little bit further. For the most part, you're going to want to use comps that are as close as possible to the subject property. Any other questions? Anything I didn't cover or things you're curious about?
Awesome information. Thanks, Nick.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for your help. I appreciate it. Okay, well, I'm probably going to wrap it up. Yeah, Tina, send me an email if you have more questions. Love to help you out. Sorry I went over a little bit, but want to make sure we go through everything.
Nick, when is the recording going to be available? Because I would like to use this as a manual so I can go step by step and do some CMAs.
Totally, you got it. I can probably, I know we're trying to turn a lot of these into recordings. We're a little bit, it might take a couple of days, but here, I'm going to make sure as soon as it's done, I'll send it to you, and then we'll probably upload it on our YouTube channel. We do already have one on there, and Terry just made a new one, so maybe we'll figure out which one is the best, and we'll upload the best one on there. But I'll make sure to send you a recording.
I want a recording too, because I came in late, and I really want to hit listings hard this year, so I can always be better.
Love it. Okay, deal. Well, I'll send you, maybe I'll just make it easy and send everyone that's on the call a recording of it, so that whoever wants it has it. And then, yeah, let us know if you have any questions. Any last comments or questions? Okay, thank you guys. Call me, text me, email me if you need any help, and I will see you out there. Thanks, guys.